climbing the corporate ladder. I don't know whose dream that was, but it wasn't mine. But you get caught up in this, school system and then uni, and all your friends are off doing these grad placements or things like that. And you're sort of pushed down this channel of this is where you've got to be and got to get to. And, I think when you sit down and have a conversation about, well, what's important to us and what kind of lifestyle do we want to lead?
Hey, Laura, what if the skills that matter most later in life aren't the ones measured at school, but the ones you build by navigating people, pressure, and change? Laura and everyone listening, in this episode of More Than a Score, we're joined by Tash Chapman, whose journey from schooling to the world of work, including roles in HR and people leadership, gives her a really unique lens on what really helps people thrive over time.
Tash shares her experience of navigating school expectations, exploring different pathways, and eventually building a career centred on understanding people, their strengths, motivations, decision-making, and well-being. Through her work in HR, she's seen firsthand that confidence, self-awareness, communication, and adaptability often matter far more than a perfect academic record. This conversation is especially valuable for parents supporting young people who may be questioning their direction, worrying about getting it wrong, or feeling pressure to lock in a future too early. And for students who need reassurance that skills developed through lived experience are not secondary, but essential. Because success isn't just about what you achieve on paper. It's about who you become, how you work with others, and learning to trust yourself along the way. Welcome to this episode of More Than a Score.
Woo!
Now, Tash Chapman, it's very lovely to have you on More Than a Score. We're very excited to have you. I'm very lucky I get to do the intro. It's not verbose. It's a very kind intro. So, Tash Chapman, I've got people fascinator and watcher, HR teams and people expert, creative and enthusiastic storyteller, traveller and liver of Mediterranean culture. Not just you've got your liver,
yes,
actually living it out.
Yeah.
Adventurous mum of three with a bit of an age gap between them. Previous senior leader in corporate, now founder of Nissi Collective and Nissi Wellness. Yoga teacher and coach working with mums. Someone who sometimes may steal a joke and likes to be a little bit verbose, but lover of podcasts. Tash, it's lovely to have you on More Than a Score.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Thank you. All right. Just for all the listeners out there, Tash did tell me I had to weave in the word verbose into that. She is not a bit verbose. She's lovely to be on here. Tash, so one of the things that we do when we start the pod is we ask the question, when you think back to the end of your time at school, were you happy with your score?
No, I wasn't. I was, I wouldn't say shattered, but I was like very surprised to see that score, though I shouldn't have been.
So when you say you were a little bit shattered, a little bit surprised, so for the person that's listening, what would they have seen you if they were watching you, not in a creepy way, just watching you throughout your time in year 12?
Deflated. I was very deflated. I assumed I would get over 90, and I actually got, I can't remember exactly. I don't know if it was like 78, but I feel like I got marked up to 82 for some reason. I can't remember why now. And to me, that was like a really bad score.
Isn't that crazy? Because it's still within, it's a bell curve. I know some people say it's not a score, it's a bell curve. Like, that's still ridiculously high, but whatever it is, right, we still get knocked about by you. Sorry, you were about to say something?
No, I was just going to say, like, a lot of my friends, a lot of my year level got in the 90s, and I'd always had that expectation kind of put on me as well. Like, you're academic, you're, clever, like. And I didn't get into any of my preferences with that score either.
Right. What were your preferences at the time?
I think like engineering degrees, and I can't even remember the full extent actually, but I remember I definitely had like engineering at Monash and Melbourne down, and almost missed out on the uni place altogether because I forgot to change my preferences by the deadline. Oh my gosh, me.
And if you think about it though,
yeah,
would you have enjoyed engineering?
Well, it's so funny, isn't it? Because I feel like a lot of the career counselling that I had, I can't really remember why I ended up thinking I was good at that. I was always quite sort of, maybe I could kind of flex into either side, and then it kind of gets pushed a bit at school that, you know, especially at a girls' school, like go for STEM. And so I definitely had some parts of me where I think I would have enjoyed that. But I'd mentioned to you that when choosing my subjects, I ended up choosing, you know, some, like a lot of sciencey subjects and maths and stuff, and kind of gave away some of my other interests pretty early on.
Yeah.
Did you choose those other things because that's what you'd been advised to do, or because you thought you were also interested in those, or for a certain pathway?
It's funny, I don't know when this changed, but I always loved sort of more biology, and I did PRS, which was like physical recreation studies in year 10 or something. And I kind of wanted to be a physio at one point, and I don't know why I let that go. So I dropped biology, I kept physics, I kept chem, I did a couple of languages and English and maths, and I gave up art, I think, in year 9. Yep. History, I also loved history, and I always regret this, I am a big, like, history, you know, novel reader and stuff. Yeah. And I, like, gave that up and didn't get to even study, like, World War II history and stuff, which I am, you know, is one of my interests now. Yeah. In a weird way, like, fictional, historical novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were part of a cohort where there was an expectation to do pretty well, and then at the same time you were getting some sort of influences that maybe pulled you away from, like, your natural interests and things. You get to the end of your time and you get this score, deflated, shattered, surprised. What happens next in that moment for you? What did you do when you opened up? Were you at home?
Oh, gosh, like, I had to tell my dad, who, you know, like, all my parents, but, I don't think they were too worried about a score. And maybe in their mind that score was all right, but he was really fixated on me getting into uni. And then I remember when I missed that deadline. So I thought it was a midday deadline, but it was midnight the night before. Like,
as in, this is for your changing preferences, just in case there's someone listening, because this is a really important part, isn't it? They give you an opportunity when you get your results to then go change your preferences.
However many years ago.
Yep.
I'm sure they would have to. They would have to, because there would be lots of people in your position
or something, don't you, that you want to get into for uni. And then I had to change it, so I missed the deadline to change it. So then I didn't get an offer in the first round at all. And God, this is weird how this is all coming back to me, and, like, I haven't thought about it.
Yeah. But it's with you for so long, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can remember, like, sitting in front of our old, like, computer in the, you know, study at home, like, in our whole family home.
So a study, for people listening, a study was a room that people would put a computer in. Sorry, Tash.
I remember sort of being there and, like, logging on to change it and just being like, oh, shit, like, oh, my God. Anyway, so then what I had to do was, because I hadn't changed them and I didn't get an offer first round, I basically had to call around to all these unis and be like, hi, I guess, you know, changing my preferences and da-da-da-da-da. And do you have, you know, are you giving out second round offers? Can I send my stuff to you? Like, so I had to kind of really work for it. And I ended up...
Did they, sorry to interrupt, but how did they respond when you did that phone call?
Yeah, because, like, and I remember Dad being like, well, this is what you're going to have to do. And I don't even know how he knew that, because he didn't go to uni or anything. But, yeah, I just remember I had to really sort of, like, hustle for it. They were okay. They were like, okay, this is the process and this is what we need you to do or see. And I can't really remember. But anyway, I got into a Bachelor of Arts at Monash, which, again, not the worst. But at the time, it was like,
in comparison to what you'd imagine you were going to do, there was this expectation that you were holding and you had to do something different.
It's so funny, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, that is a great, you know.
Yeah, it was potentially an opportunity to do the history.
Yes, which you could have. You know, that's so funny because I did start off there.
Yeah.
And so I got into Bachelor of Art, and then, first semester, I think I picked, like, World War II history, Spanish. I don't think I'd ever studied. Like, I'd done Italian, I'd done French, I'd done Chinese, but I was like, I'll do another language. Oh, no, I'd done Greek.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'll just do another language. I've always wanted to learn Spanish. And I can't remember what the other one was. And I failed abysmally. I passed Spanish on like a 50%.
Yeah.
Just, I think, because having done all the other languages, and the others I completely flunked because I just wasn't turning up to uni and I was out partying the whole time. So, yes. Then I decided to take, I think, either at least a semester off. I can't remember if it was a full year. So I was like, you know what? My head's not in it. I need time to just go and enjoy the world and come.
You and I sound like we had a similar first year. I completely bombed and went off the rails, like just completely lost it. I didn't have the structure and I wasn't too sure. I got so caught up on, there was a pub just opposite my camp. And what do you mean? So I don't have to be in the class. Yes. I can go over the road. I'm allowed to do that. I'm an adult. I can manage myself. But before we jump into, I think, the pathway, it was really interesting in your pre-pod form. You spoke about, is it a Mrs. Ma, Janet Ma?
Oh.
Did you want to do a shout out to her? Because I'm interested. You said that she was, she was a supporter.
Yes. And so a girlfriend of mine and I, like, we were kind of a bit cheeky, but we ended up forming this really great bond with Janet. So we probably got sent to her office a few times in like year 8 and 9. And then by, I feel like year 10, year 11, she just, I don't know, we'd formed this mutual respect. It was weird, but yeah, she was really wonderful. And even having gone back on for, I think, the 20-year reunion a little while ago, she was there and she was so lovely and really great to see her.
How would she have described just to set the scene for the people listening, so how would Mrs. Ma have described you going through year 12, like as a student?
Friendly and switched on, but not really applying herself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was that sort of student that had been able to coast through till pretty much year 11 and then didn't do.
I was going to ask you about that because you said you got this score you weren't expecting. You were expecting to get in the 90s because that was the kind of the rhetoric told to you that you're smart, you're academic. And up until that point, you've been able to just kind of do the bare minimum and get a good score.
Yeah.
So if you think back, how would you have preferred to have conducted yourself perhaps in year 12 if you had the opportunity?
Because it was a real sort of big learning curve, I think, after that to kind of go, maybe I, didn't apply myself as I should have, or, it was a funny one. And then, you know what, I think I did struggle a lot with picking up a lot of the concepts, particularly in physics, and I just wasn't there. So rather than studying more or going and seeking out the teacher's help or whatever, I just kind of was like, I kind of get it, but not really. I'll work it out later on. And
so maybe find something that you actually connect more with, because it feels like you were doing these things, showing up, being like, I don't quite get it. I'm not motivated enough to get it really. Surely it'll figure itself out, which sometimes that works.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, well, I mean, you leave this to the last minute.
Yeah.
It does take more than a minute, hey?
It does, right? And look, I'm your queen of last minute. I'm a real sort of perform well under pressure, you would say, except not in the exams. But yeah, in that case, I did sort of learn, all right, you've got to kind of, year 12 is tricky.
Has going through all of that, has that changed the way that you do prepare? Because you strike me as someone that can.
Sacrifice of only this is a visual medium.
Because I think it's in Atomic Habits by James Clear. One of his most famous quotes is, "We don't rise to our goal, we fall to our systems or our processes."
Yeah.
So it sounds like in that moment you realised when you got the score you're surprised, but then you also said, but also I sort of could understand why, because you hadn't put in place those habits.
I did the same thing. I would hand in my assignments, like the morning. I would stay up all night and hand them in at like 8:59 before they were due at 9 a.m. And you had to physically go in and hand in.
You did.
I was raised with a security guard on campus who would sometimes let me in at like 5 a.m. to hand in my
I realised that we had a very similar experience. I got to know one of the receptionists who would open the door if it was after 5 p.m. so I could slide my assignment into, because we had to put it in on a desk into a little tray.
Or whatever.
But there is something I can see with you about the idea of being personable. Do you know what I mean? Like, you made friends and connections with the security guard. You called up the university, and there would have been something, I'm sure, about you that is, you're friendly and you're personable and you're engaging. I think there's something in you that maybe people give you a little grace.
Yeah, totally. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, which I think is a skill. You shouldn't overlook that. There is something really beautiful about that bubbliness that you have.
Oh, thanks, Laura.
Oh, it's true.
Definitely, I'm sort of the mindset of, what is it? Like your strength, you've got to play to your strengths, you're sort of, not your weaknesses, your other, what do we call it in the professional?
Strengths, will we call it?
Your areas for development are always going to be areas for development. And if, you can work your hardest at trying to kind of lift those. However, your time is often better spent sort of amplifying your strengths.
Yeah.
So really play to your strengths. And I think for a long time, particularly in my career, I was very hung up on what I wasn't good at or what was lacking, and trying to kind of fix those to, no avail. And I think when I switched that mindset around, okay, well, you know what, that stuff is hard for me and I'm never going to be super good at it, but what am I good at and what can I, work harder at to get even better at? That's when I think stuff really shifted for me.
It's a nice segue, because I was reading through like your journey and the pathway that's happened. So you bomb out of semester 1 at uni. So you go through that thing of hustling to get in, change your preferences, work out the preference, get into uni. You start your Bachelor of Arts. Then you bailed to work and travel. You're like, this isn't working. I'm just going to go try and work something out. I'll work so then I can travel. And then you moved into this piece around people. So speaking of being personable, connecting with people. So you came back, and then psych became your major with business as a minor, which then led you to move from uni into HR roles. You ended up becoming head of HR in a really big corporate. So again, it's all people. It's about understanding, supporting different people. And then things start to adjust, where when you become a mum, you start to move and adjust and transition away from HR. Yeah. But it's still connected to people, where you start a side gig, which becomes the full gig, Nissi Collective. You're on mat leave, you then start to further more workarounds, coaching certification, yoga, teaching, and then founding now Nissi Wellness. The thing that I found really interesting when I was reading this was you said, I always felt like a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, I've written the same thing.
Oh, Laura, look at us go. Yeah. So here, my question is, what was the trigger point that made you make the change?
Oh, it's after just so long in corporate and then trying to juggle, a big role, young kids, all of that. Like, I was so burnt out and I was just so strung out and stressed out, and I was suffering from really bad anxiety. So, it sort of wears you down bit by bit to the point where you're like, I don't even know who I am anymore, or what essentially you're just there to earn the dollars, and my heart wasn't in it anymore. It was taking so much from me, like physically, emotionally, like all of that. Like, it's, a tough gig. There's people who are maybe like rule followers or want to administer the rules in HR, and I was much more on the people side, like wanting to help the people. And I really struggled with, you go into it with this sort of noble aspiration of helping people in their jobs, be happy and engaged. And I did have a certain chunk of time where that was what I was doing in HR, and that was great.
Yeah, and you got awarded. You got awarded. What was it? The
best employer.
Best employee because of that.
That was a special moment. Yeah, but then beyond that, it just becomes, when you're just trying to keep the business out of trouble, essentially. And then I realized it was really in conflict with my values, what I was doing. I sort of got to a point where I was like, I'm standing behind these people or advising them on what to do. They're doing the opposite of what I'm advising all of the time. And then I'm having to kind of re-engineer or kind of, work back to fix all these problems. And they're just, like, people aren't always being treated the way I would like to be treated or to treat people, and just got too much. So that was...
Do you remember we used to sit together watching the kids swim?
Yes,
we would sit together, and you and I feel like we're the same. I was in teaching, similar values. My values are being really pushed. Same for you. And I remember you saying, look, I'm walking into rooms and I can see so clearly what the trajectory should be, what the best steps forward are. It's so clear to me. And I say them out loud and people look at me like I've got 10 heads. And I'm like, but it's, what is it that you don't see? Yeah. And I remember listening to that and being like, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can see so
clearly.
Yes, I can see this is going to be better for everyone. Everyone's so stuck in how it's always best done.
Especially, yes, when you're in a role that's requiring a lot of change, or, you know, you're expected to bring about a lot of change in the business, but you've got a really change resistant sort of culture.
Yes.
It's really...
That moment, I remember having that conversation with you. I've never forgotten it.
And Tash, how long were you in HR when you had that moment?
When I was feeling like that.
Yeah, when you had that moment.
Close to probably 15, well, maybe over 15 years at that point. But it had been like a slow burn, probably the last 2 years of that role. And, you know, some ups and downs. But then, I remember it sort of got to a point. Probably, I'd started Nissi Collective, and that was, you know, a side sort of hustle with my sister. And I needed, you know, just an outlet that was more something I was passionate about. And then, you know, I sort of also felt a bit conflicted about then trying to balance that with my other role. And then it sort of, I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I can't stay here anymore. So I either need to look for a new job. You know, Nissi's not ready to be full-time yet. But I was looking for a job, and I'd actually, it's funny, we launched Nissi. 3 days later, I found out I was pregnant with a surprise pregnancy. And it was like my whole world shifted. I felt like I was on this trajectory to, you know, slowly kind of grow Nissi, step out of HR, like all of this. And it's almost like, you know, overnight, it all kind of hit the pause button, but then also like rocket launched me into a totally different direction. So
you started to notice something was different about you. You were obviously feeling more anxious. You were noticing it was just going through the motions. And then I think the reason, what's really helpful for the person listening too, is you started to notice, well, hang on, this actually doesn't align with what I think is important or what matters.
Yeah.
And then you also had this moment, then you found out you were pregnant. So talk us through the mat leave, because you for the person that we don't have video yet, Laura.
Yeah.
But you literally like signaled like a rocket taking off, pointing, pushing your hand up. Whereas some people would say mat leave might be a career pause or a career break. You described it as a rocket, like something. Taking it.
Well, it's funny because this was my third mat leave, so I feel like it took me till the third one to realize, like, I knew from the previous 2 breaks that I had wished I had spent more time developing maybe a different skill, or, you know, going and doing a course, something for me that would help me kind of later down the track. Yeah, when this mat leave came around, I was like, right, I'm going to get stuck right into it. And I started the yoga teaching course and my coaching certification. And then I also did some daydreaming about a big lifelong goal of mine, which was to take the family to live in Greece for 3 months. And with that time and space to be able to think that through and how it could actually happen, that's when, I kind of was like, all right, well, let's really push this, you know, into this coaching space and the yoga stuff, and try and create an income from somewhere else that can support this dream to happen. And I mean, it was probably my husband that more supported that dream to happen. But thank you, Jay, if you're listening. He'll never.
It's a team effort. I mean, it's a team effort, isn't it, at that point in time?
So it was, you know, and I was like that last minute kind of scramble. I was like scrambling, like, okay, and I'll do this, and I'll have finished my yoga by then, so I can teach over there and keep sitting and going in, and, you know, the Airbnb, the house, and we were pulling out all stops to make this dream, you know, happen.
Yes.
But if it wasn't for that, then I probably wouldn't have pushed as hard to get into this coaching space and get into the yoga space and just, you know, do all this sort of learning that I think I was so ready to sort of come back to as well. So
it actually sounds like you're playing to some of the strengths, like going back to what you said. So you naturally respond to the last minute, or that's a bit of a preference. Like when you missed the preferences, you did a scramble and caught up all the unis. Like even putting in all your assignments, you do a scramble, but you still get it done. So it sounds like this was the same natural preference.
It needs a lot, you know, cortisol and adrenaline to get something done. So yes, that's, yeah.
Well, at least you know your preferences that you're playing to, right? Like that's the thing too.
Yeah, I need a deadline to work to.
Yeah. So. It's really interesting to me that you chose coaching and yoga. Why do you feel that those things were the things that would be more aligned with your values?
When I was looking to get out of HR and I was sort of writing down, okay, what are the things I love doing within my HR work, and you know, if I had to find the perfect HR role or next gig, what would it involve? And it was stuff around relationships, strategic planning, workshops. You know, like I had a few sort of accreditations where I used to run a lot of like team building workshops and things like that. And that was the stuff I loved doing, and the engagement piece. And so when I sort of mapped all that out, that was kind of there. And then, yes, the personal development side of stuff. So I've ever since I kicked off that psych degree, I've just been fascinated about self-development and that sort of path. So I don't know. And I was also like, what can I do now as a mum of three? Like, I can't travel into the city anymore regularly. Like it's a big ask. So I was like, what can I do more from home on my own terms, and eventually maybe scale. But, you know, initially I was like, I just want to work with people one-on-one to help them get the best out of themselves. And then going back to the yoga and how I saw that fitting in, the yoga had taught me so much about just, I guess, self-regulation, mindset, balancing your energy and that kind of thing. So, and it was always like a pie in the sky kind of thing to do that. I was thinking, you know, maybe when I'm 60, I'll retrain as a yoga teacher. I remember going to Jan Winslade's yoga on the beach the first summer I lived here and being like, oh my God, how cool is she? Like she's, you know, 60-something years old and her job is coming and teaching a yoga class on the beach over summer. Like amazing. Yeah. And I was nowhere near it at that point. You know, that was, when did we move here? 2020. And yeah, again, it was like this time and space to kind of think, well, why couldn't I do that? Like, I think that is so cool, and I know how much I need to sort of move my body, you know, stretch, go inward, like kind of ground myself and all of that. Why not make it part of my day to day? And it was just it was something I thought, whether I use it immediately or not, it's a skill that I'll be able to develop, you know, longer term, and who knows. And then with the Nissi side of stuff too, one day we wanted to do retreats, and I was like, okay, this is like the perfect storm to just get all of this. Yeah.
Playing to that strategic planning strength that you said comes out, like being able to see longer term. Yeah, potentially. But
I am, my sister's always like, because we talked about something the other day, and I was like, and then we could get so-and-so to do this. She was like, oh my God, that's like 10,000 steps down the process, but I love how your brain works. Like, she's like, my mind had just never even gone there, and I'm always 1,000 steps ahead, which is probably one of my, you know, I don't want to say weaknesses, but areas for development is more like I can see the long term, and I can kind of see here. Sometimes I don't always have it worked out along the way. But
we were talking about this, weren't we, in terms of partnerships and couples and stuff, about generally there's a dreamer, and it's an awful way of describing it, but then there's also a handbrake. And I think the handbrake is the person that's like, I see that that's where you're headed, but let's figure out what the steps are in between. But I also think that the person who is really fixated on the detail doesn't have the big picture. So you actually need each other, it sounds like. You do.
You know, the realisation I've come to and how I've sort of ended up here doing this stuff, which feels like you do this big 360 sometimes, don't you? Having wanted to be like a physio, and I was remembering when I was in grade 4, we did a time capsule at school, and you had to put in what you wanted to be. Yeah. And at the time I was doing gymnastics, and I thought I would have already gone to the Olympics for gymnastics and I'd be a coach. And I was like, isn't that funny? Well, I don't know if I specified what type of coach. But so I just was like, oh, that's a little...
Well, there's always parts of us, I think, that are just pre-programmed, right, that we always have a natural preference for. But what's really interesting too just there is, I don't know if I've listened incorrectly, but so a natural strength of yours is strategic planning, so being able to look ahead. If you think about like the actual origins of a coach, it was a carriage, like a form of transport that got people from one thing to the other. So your natural strength isn't necessarily the detail, but your strength is helping people work out what it is they want to get to. Yeah. And then trusting that they have the understandings on the ways to create the detail. You don't have to do that.
And that's, 100% like what I feel like, you know, going back to all that stress and anxiety that I was dealing with and then wanting to do the yoga. And I did get a bit of like, it was not necessarily like business coaching. She was a psychologist, but it was kind of like a, when I wanted to get the Nissi stuff off the ground. And and then it's like if I hadn't gone through that, then I wouldn't have had this realization to sort of, come the whole way back to what I'm doing now. So
yeah. And also the coaching you're doing is really specific. It's about supporting mums and supporting them in trying to live the life that they really want to live.
Yeah.
And I wonder too how much empathy and compassion you would have for those mums had you not gone through this yourself.
Oh, 100%. I mean, definitely wouldn't probably be focusing in that space. I think as well, we've talked about me being sort of this last minute person who square pegging around doll in the corporate world. I always just felt like I was trying to be something I wasn't. And, I think if anyone has felt like that, particularly mums or whatever, I think I can sort of meet them where they're at. And there's obviously, like sort of type A style personalities and type B. And for so long I was told, I was kind of like in this type A world and, it's okay to be type B. Some people are just the scrappy last minute people who still kind of can make cool things happen.
Yeah.
Well, and also too, it's like, I think we've spoken about on other episodes, like it sounds like for you, a shift that's happened is not making decisions based on others' expectations. So even from school to now doing it based on your expectations. And there's a book called The Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret that all these people had in palliative care was living a life that others thought they should do. So the thing that I'm also saying from all the guests that we're getting is at some point all of them realise there's some sort of decision. They're like, I'm doing things because of what others expect, whereas I'm making this change.
Climbing the corporate ladder. I don't know whose dream that was, but it wasn't mine. But you get caught up in this, sort of school system and then uni and, all your friends are off doing these grad what do you call it? Like placements or things like that. And you sort of, kind of push down this channel of this is where you've got to be and got to get to. And I think part of breaking away from that for me too was moving out of Melbourne. Like I was very caught up in that, sort of world.
Hamster.
And, I think when you sit down and kind of, within your relationship or whatever, have a conversation about, well, what's important to us and what kind of lifestyle do we want to lead, it's that analogy too of the Greek fisherman. Do you know this one?
No, tell us about it.
He's out fishing and I don't know, there's some big magnate kind of holidaying there and he says, why don't you stay out an hour longer each day and get more fish and then you'll be able to buy a bigger boat and then you can, employ some more people and get an even bigger boat or a whole fleet and then you can work really hard so that then one day you can retire when you're 60 and spend time with your grandkids. And he was like, well, I can spend time with my children now,
on a slightly smaller boat.
Yes, I'm just like going out for as many hours as I'm going out a day and catching this amount of fish.
Yeah. What's your good enough or your content?
Yeah, exactly. So I think I kind of realised money is not the thing that makes me happy or having, the biggest house or the nicest, flashiest things. It's definitely not material things for me. So it's the adventures, the small moments, definitely like those small moments, day to day, but able to go to the beach every day or just, go for a walk, fit in that, the exercise and all of that stuff to keep you sort of in a positive state. That's more what's important now. So
you've worked with so many people. So thinking of all your years in HR, all the teams, all the individuals, the leadership development, like think of that happy space when you're in HR. And then also you work now as a coach, so working with people.
Yeah.
A question that jumped to my mind that I thought would be really interesting for people listening, when you think of all that time, what are some things you've noticed about the most content or flourishing people at work?
Actually, we had a leader and all this sort of stuff that I've talked about, he worked it out. I was also very lucky back in one of the big businesses I worked at. We did a whole leadership around resilience. And this was, probably before it was a buzzword. And that we did a whole program through a company called the Resilience Institute, and they're, the foundations of what they
stood for.
Yeah, like the foundations of resilience essentially are body. So we all know about that stuff, keep eating right and exercising and all of that. So I might be getting them wrong.
We can check it later, but there were some key things.
But yeah, sleep was a huge one.
Yeah.
And I feel like spirit was the other one. So that's sort of,
bigger purpose.
Yes.
And alignment and values.
Yeah, having purpose, rest and recovery, eating right and exercising. I don't know if I've covered them all. But yeah, so we did a whole program around that. We had to go through this whole questionnaire, work out where you were on this resilience spiral. And a lot of us, especially in HR, were really not sitting in a good place. And then, it was simple things like what commitments can you make to yourself about what you're going to do in certain areas to improve your resilience. And, whether it was going for a walk once a day or, eating sort of healthier meals. I can't even remember now. But this guy that I'm talking about, this leader, one of the big things they said is you need to go to bed and wake up at the same time basically every day. And he was a real big one for that. And I mean, he had a massive role and all of that, but he, that was something I think he'd sort of, by that stage mastered. Really big on his fitness. I'm just
eating well, having the relationships.
The connections. So you don't, put yourself to bed at 9:30 p.m. every night of the week at expense of your relationships or that human connection and that kind of thing. So it's always, a bit fluid. But yes, back to, I think the people that do it right are, or who are the most content and successful are maybe the ones that they sort of worked out what structural habits, work for them, and probably also what they value most, where they're spending their time.
Yeah, that's really interesting because there's people, I guess, now when this comes out, it'll be the beginning of 2026. So people will be starting down, say, year 12 or new uni degrees or new careers like yourself, launching new things. So I just think that's really, really helpful where it's, if you've got a balance of those different areas. You said it was resilience, different ways you can make sure you can bounce back and keep going and manage, and not just surviving, right? It's putting
foundations to all well-being stuff, and
it's that PERMA model, isn't it?
In markets. So
but being clear on values, that was a key that you said just near the end too. They knew what they stand for too.
I think so. Yes,
because it might be less. Because I've heard this from friends that have been in corporate.
Yeah,
and they've said so they were always really interested in finding out. So what makes that person? And that's what they want. Yeah, that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's really a funny beast, because I also have worked with some really incredible people who, were killing it on that sort of, climbing the corporate ladder and in these leadership roles and doing all the things and on this really hard and fast trajectory, and then burnout comes along, massive sort of crash out of, taking months off. And it's always in this sort of midlife kind of season as well, where, I think then you kind of stop and you reevaluate and you look at what is most important. And for most people, it's not that stuff. I mean, a lot of people do have that sort of sense of, needing to achieve and needing to be, whether it's a leader or
the ambition,
and the ambition side that really drives them. But for most, it's not necessarily that.
I wanted to ask you about this idea of permission, because you looked at this yoga teacher, you came down here and you're looking at her and you're like, what a lovely life that must be. Not possible. It was this idea of not possible. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you decided to give yourself permission to be a little scrappy, permission to be the type B. And I super relate to this because I think I was the same. I was the type A.
Oh my God, Laura, I was such a type A.
But then I went and had kids and I came back and I was the teacher that didn't have my lesson plans.
Oh, yes, it's so hard.
I don't have kids. But I also was I think more aligned with I think some of it, the type A-ness, was more about, well, that's what everyone else is doing, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But when you take a step away, you can go, was that because I wanted to do that? Or was that because the environment I was in was doing that?
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about this idea of when did you decide you could give yourself that permission to chase the thing that you felt you weren't able to do before?
Well, have I still? I don't know. Yeah, I think it was definitely a big conversation that we had to have as well, like as in Jay and I.
Your husband?
Yes.
Who doesn't know you?
Around,
Who's definitely listening to this episode.
I mean, can we just...
Thanks, Jody.
One of our voices to who's the guy he listens to? Who's the...
Luke Darcy.
Darcy.
Luke Darcy.
Listen to him anymore.
Luke Darcy, AFL footballer.
And telling me something
Yeah.
about Hutchie the other day. Probably just said, doing something or other.
Well, when they both listen to this, can you,
Yes. Somebody DM Jay and...
Craig or Luke, can you please reach out to Jay? Let him in.
Quite good.
Yeah.
Darcy's got kids, hasn't he?
Sure.
Oh, he's obviously a fan of this podcast too.
He definitely listen.
I'm sure we can find a connection.
Yeah.
So, get him on.
Yeah.
Permission around. Well, you know what? I had done a little bit of coaching myself, and I'd done a little business startup course and things like that. And there's that phrase, if not me, then who? Or
if not now, then when?
Yeah, if it's cool, why not? Like, why do I feel like that's not? And, I probably up until that point hadn't been seen as like the most necessarily spiritual, physical fitness person or anything like that. But what it was giving me, I just saw so much value in. And when I wasn't practicing the yoga side of stuff, I was like, oh, you really feel it so much. And then just, the coaching side of it too. I think having gone through that like bit of postnatal anxiety and having really lost my, sense of who I was, like all my confidence, when you're young and you're coming up through the ranks, you sort of feel invincible, don't you? And I definitely left school, even with all those little mishaps along the way. And I entered the workforce with this, sense of, I've not got it all worked out, but I can do anything. I can do anything I put my mind to, and as long as I kind of persevere and I can get there. And somewhere along the way, that sort of gets chipped away, and I was like left with this shell of like, oh my God, I'm just no good at anything, and I can't even get these kids out the door.
Yeah.
I don't know why it becomes so much more intense once you've got,
Well, you're trying to fit in. Yeah. There's a lot more going on in your life.
It's also things like your time is not always real. I think that was the hardest thing.
So
because when you're in your 20s, you have really no one else to please. Like if I wanted to, I could stay up till 4 a.m. working.
Yes.
Whereas
and I loved doing that.
Yeah,
it's my best time to do my work. I was now with 3 kids.
I'm a night out.
I have to go to bed at like 10 o'clock, and it's my best working time is after 10 at night.
Yeah.
But I can't stay up till 4 a.m. working because I got to get up to the kids. So.
Yeah. Or you go, I'm going to go to bed at 11 o'clock and I'll get up at 7, I'll get work done in the morning, and then, someone's vomited.
Yes.
Or someone's, and then you're up till 3 with gastro.
Yes.
Great.
Last night, Sonny was still awake at 10, and I was like cursing, just going, what? Like, thinking I was going to have him down by 7:30. And he just was full of ants, like, would not go, like,
Sounds like he gets his best work done after 10 p.m.
Just like it's past.
And I was just like, oh my God, imagine if he just has one of these nights where he's just up all night and screaming and like, what is it? Do you need to poo? Are you getting sick? And I was thinking, I have to message you at 2 a.m. to say, I don't know if I can do this.
I remember being in my 20s and watching people show up to work. Like, we obviously started work at 9 o'clock for class, and everyone was there before 8:30. And I'd see these parents rocking up at 8:45 and being like, just not committed. I know. Because you're like, I was here at 7:30. I've done all my photocopying, and it's real misunderstanding of what life becomes. And when I became that person because I had to do drop off, and I just think these people have lived an entire life before they even got to school.
Yes.
And here's me,
intense, isn't it?
Coffee.
When I was an HR person, and I'd have managers come to me saying, look, so and so, she's been taking so much sick leave, and like she's just not tuning up. She's always blaming like her kids for being sick, but I just, she's not committed. She's not this, not that. So you have to have these chats with people and blah, blah, blah. And then I came back in my first, year after having Soph, And I was only working 3 days a week, but I was still, when the days you've got to work, like daycare sends them home and you've got to go. There's not, and I just had this completely new found empathy for these mothers and parents who, I had, and then I thought what really confused me was a lot of these managers were men who had children themselves. So how did they not understand? Like, what was their dynamic? But I guess they were just the breadwinner and they didn't have to pick up any of that slack necessarily. And so, but I was like, but don't you have any empathy towards these other, mums or parents? Like, think about your own life. Like, have you been through something like this? So I've always found that so strange that you kind of, we're not the first people sitting around today chatting to our parents. And the ones that came before us,
Yeah, I think
world these days.
Yeah, I think you're right with the empathy factor. Like, because I still remember starting my first day at a new school when I was teaching, and we had our first girl. So we had my eldest daughter, and I got a call 2 hours into my first brand new role, and I had to leave, because my wife was off running a workshop in the city. We had no choice; I just had to go. And I remember at the time I was like, I was super stressed. I was like, but you know what? In the future, this is going to be great learning, Dad. You just know.
Do you know what happened to me? So not long after I'd started my last role, and it was probably like a month or 6 weeks in, and it was COVID, so it was all online. I hadn't met anyone in person, and I had to run a workshop online for the entire company. And I was so caught up in preparing for this workshop, and I just, need everything to be amazing. I had dropped one of the kids off at kinder, and I'd said to the teacher, I'll have to come and get in early so that they're home because I've got to be on for this, to do this presentation, and I won't be able to get there for pickup. And anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm all ready to do my presentation, and I see my phone ring and it says it says the kinder number ringing, and I just froze. I was like, why are they ringing me? Like, what is... And I was like, oh, I forgot to pick the kid up from kinder. And it was on screen already. Oh my God.
Running this workshop for your whole company.
Whole company workshop. I was a month into the gig. I knew how to make sure. And I said, I'm very sorry. I'm just going to have to pause this for a minute to sort out. I've just had a call from the kinder. And anyway, so we had to break, and then I can't even remember what we did. I think we paused it for half an hour.
Oh my gosh.
I had to go and pick him up, come back and regroup, and I was just so flustered. I remember people messaging me and being like, oh my God, that's hilarious. Or just being quite supportive. But I remember one guy who I became good friends with later on said to me, oh, I'll never forget that day. I thought, she's not going to last here. But look, I turned it into, a bit of a story, even at the time, about these are, why we're doing
adaptability and agility.
Flexibility,
I do think there was something about COVID that it humanized so many of us, which I think was a lovely thing. I remember teaching, online, and I'd have Spider-Man on my lap and being like, okay, we're just going to have to do this. I remember a colleague of mine was toilet training a child. And in the middle of a Zoom, this kid turns up in the background, pants off, and it's like, okay, I'll... But I actually think that we are just human. Like, why do we expect people to show up in their roles as perfect robots with no other issues? Like, we're all human beings. Isn't that so strange that we don't all behave on that same level?
It's tricky because I think sometimes we have as professions, we've got codes of conduct, right? So then people sometimes but there's that thing of you go so beholden to something like that, but forgetting that also, especially during a pandemic, you've got to play the human side a little bit too, right? Like a little bit of give and take. Can't go all the way one way, right?
I mean, that viral footage of that guy, and he was, you know what I'm talking about?
The newsreader?
He was on the newsreader, and his child came in, and the nanny's scrambling, and he doesn't...
The nanny falls over, right?
I think so. And he was like, yes, and I just thought, those things happened to me, and instead of being like, get out, I was like, hey guys, my kid's here, I'm just going to resettle him, and I'll be back in a minute. Instead of being like, oh no, my performance is sort of broken here.
Well, given all of that, I think there's something under all that, which is, so your idea of success has changed dramatically throughout all this time. You've spent all this time sort of slowly refining to work out what it means for you. So if you've got 3 kids, if they were, say, finishing school or going towards the end of their school now, knowing what you know, what advice would you sit down and say to them to have a really successful next 20 years? So let's pretend they're at the end of school. You're like, you know what? Gather around, Sonny. This is what it's about.
I think you just got to give things a go, and like everything that you try will ultimately lead you, you know, on a path to somewhere. So just be ready and willing to have a go. You don't have to have it all figured out today, and you're going to, I think, give yourself permission, like you said, Laura, to just give things a try and know they don't have to be forever, but they may, you know, every job, every little experience you have along the way is going to give you some skills, wisdom, you know, stuff that you can take with you to the next thing.
Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah. So,
and when
just, you know, you don't need to have it all figured out, and you'll work it out along the way. Like I said, you know, the path that's got me to here, if I look back, you kind of think, this is sort of where I was meant to end up, right? But at the time, I could never see that happening. But even all those, you know, the downsides or the tough times ultimately bring you to where you're meant to be too.
Yeah, well, would you change where you're at right now? Like, has it all added up to a spot that you're pretty more content with right now?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I just quickly ask, just to push you a little bit more, if that's okay?
Yeah.
So when you say have a go,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you don't mean just like whatever happens, like there's probably, you have a certain approach, or like when you say have a go, is there certain things that help you have a better go?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess, like I said before, about playing to your strengths. So for me, I think getting a good understanding of yourself, who you are, what lights you up, you know, your passions and interests, and then, you know, what you're good at too. You've got to take into account and sort of help allow that to sort of steer you in a certain direction. Yeah.
There's the one thing we're finding out from all this is that it's actually quite rare to have a linear career and a linear path, right? Like, so how long till Nissi history comes out? Knowing that you love history, is this what's going to happen? Is that when you've got
one day I'll be some sort of
historic?
historical tours. I love that.
Well, I think, and you know what? The thing that you also realise, it's the same when I used to teach all these different kids. When you've got an interest in something, you're more likely to stick to it. You're more likely to craft it. You're more likely to master things and then be really good at it. And then people can't help but get engaged.
Yeah. Through the Nissi stuff, I've come along this other lady who has an account. She's out of New York, and she actually also is, I think, a yoga teacher by trade, but she runs retreats. She has this whole sort of, she was a dance teacher and all this stuff, but a lot of her business is centered around ancient Greek philosophy and bringing like the ancient philosophers' kind of phrases and things to, you know, just how they're still applicable today. And I love that kind of
So you just did a 3-month adventure with your 3 kids in Greece. What was that experience like, and what did you learn?
I feel like I haven't quite worked that out yet. No.
Yeah.
What was it like?
We'll get Tash on for episode number 2, all about Greek insights.
What are you going to do, like a post or something about it? But, you know.
Yes.
It was sort of, it sounds naff, but it was kind of everything I had dreamed and hoped it would be. It was just kind of immersing in the lifestyle, allowing them to just be exposed to all this different stuff. You know, highlights and lowlights are plenty, but it was so mind expanding for them. They just, you know, I think we live in a pretty sheltered community down here, and like Tommy had never seen a beggar and was so kind of like really impacted by that. And you know, his empathetic side came out. Like, he's such an empath, and he'd be like, why, Mum, why are they, give them all your money. Like, would you give them money? Give them money. And but just, you know, you have such big conversations that you don't often have day to day here. So, things about like that, about poverty. And then obviously, a lot of stories about why my grandparents migrated to Australia and the wars. So we had big chats about World War II. I let my history teacher come out there. No, I'm joking. And these are big topics and big concepts for little kids, but
it expands their worldview.
It's in real time. Yeah, that was cool because, the kids here were studying, I think, Mornington history. Yeah. It's like, well, that's only about 200 years old. We're going to like 2,000.
Yeah,
thousands of years old sort of stuff. So
did it create a lot of pride in their culture?
It did.
That's lovely.
My daughter, a few years back, she did not want to be associated with anything. I'm not Greek, I'm Aussie, and blah. And she now has the Greek flag stuck up in her room.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yes, a lot of pride, because we also, the Greeks, they're a proud nation, and we went to 2 different sort of parades at the time. There was, national holidays and things, and they loved all of that. And, obviously the Acropolis and various museums, and but it was a really nice learning process, but at the same time, just like getting to be with them, day to day, and spending a lot of time with my parents and all this, extended family that you kind of reconnect with.
Yeah.
And
Tash, I think we should do some sort of shorter episode because I think there's a further story under all this, which I'd be fascinated to hear about, which is you have an idea.
Yeah.
Because if I'm someone listening right now, hearing that someone took their family over to go live overseas for 3 months, that could almost sound unattainable. So I think what would be really fascinating, because you said earlier, I pictured it, and then I had to work out and plan really carefully how I made it actually happen.
And so to be honest, I've known you for a long time, and this has been the dream for a long time. And each year it would be like in June, and then the June would come and not this year. So but it was a dream that so many people would be and would have, and it doesn't quite. But you made it happen.
And it would have made more sense to do it when I was working and we were more financially stable.
But that's what and that's the thing, because I think some people could assume that
it was up, and we'd sort of thrown it up before I got pregnant, and the plan had always been to do it for a year, and it was going to be Jay's gap year, and I would go to work, and with his business that sort of wasn't going to work out. So it was a bit of a compromise to do the 3 months, and he put a lot of faith in me that all my crazy plans would kind of work out. But like you said before, Laura, sometimes you just got to have that dream and the vision and trust that it will somehow work out along the way, because it didn't work out exactly as I had anticipated. I thought I'd get over there and be able to work a couple of days a week, and that the reality of that, because I was by myself with the kids the majority of the time. That was just crazy thinking. But unless I was going to get a babysitter or a nanny, or lock my mum down to not be at the local cafe or whatever. But things had to shift. And we're lucky, obviously, that, a lot of our accommodation was sorted out and that kind of thing too. So,
but I think that could be a really helpful thing, because it sounds like, it was a dream, but it's also a life-changing thing for you guys as a family too.
It wasn't like a European holiday like you see these people go on. It wasn't like, oh, we're going and we're going to be
renting the chateaus.
Yes, God. We were living in like a tiny 1-bedroom unit, it was a lot, let's just say. But it wasn't about making it pretty or making it
working out the good enough.
Like you say,
it's about living in it. About seeing what it would be like to live there,
100%.
Right? Instead of the fancy.
Because it did give me a bit, of a new realization that to go, it is incredible to go and move your family somewhere and live a year plus in a completely different culture, I think. But we did sort of learn that Europe, especially, it's wonderful for a holiday. Mm-hmm. And that summer lifestyle that you see over there is awesome, but that's holiday lifestyle. When it goes back to sort of reality, the kids, and families over there, they're living very similarly to what we are here. They're doing after school sports, and they're, all the extracurricular stuff, and it's, schoolwork. I think they do definitely carry a slightly different sense of community and sort of, that sacredness around like having meals together and things like that, which was really beautiful to see. But it gave us a good appreciation for what we've got here, especially where we're so lucky to live. And I actually came back feeling like we've got the best of both worlds here with our small community and,
That's good.
The beach right on our doorstep. But yeah, I mean, the dream is to be able to go and,
It's true. I think we should. I think because there's a number of people that we've interviewed have they've done things like that where they've pictured a thing and then they just go, whatever I need to do to make that happen, I'll make it. So I think it'd be really interesting. But Tash, can I come back to there's something you said about playing to strengths. So something I was hearing based on what you've been saying and hearing your story and pathway, like you have some really amazing strengths. So you're able to not only like see and picture and plan ahead, but then somehow make it happen.
Yeah, I can just see it.
Well, don't you think though that's the thing? So you can picture a future. Yeah, you can picture a vision and then you can scramble and adapt and make things happen and get the right people on board to achieve a thing.
Yeah.
You deeply care about people, so you like helping people.
And community.
And you're obviously really good with building rapport and building relationships with people. So they're your strengths. So the one thing I just thought is, because the piece of advice that you gave to people is, so have a go, play to your strengths, spot your interests, passions. Well, how do people know what their strengths are if they don't? What's helped you work out what your strengths are?
Lots of different, surveys, tools, personality.
Yeah, there's some that people could
always been fascinated by, though, not to pigeonhole people or to pigeonhole yourself necessarily, but getting a deeper understanding of yourself, I think, is really important. So just being lucky to be around that sort of style.
Yeah. Are there some tools that you see? Like there's the VIA character strengths, is it? That's free, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a free one. And I feel like that's a good one because to me, it's not just character strengths. It kind of looks at I reckon it's more of a values assessment too. Like for me, the top three is always like humour, love and appreciation of beauty and excellence, which is more about like appreciating people that are really good at like, they might be, an excellent scientist or anything like that, but also just beauty and nature.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a bit of gratitude, right? Within that strength, there's a play of that. You're good at spotting and playing the gratitude.
Yeah. Learning as well is always up there in curiosity. But VIA character strengths is a good free one. You can get, I'm Myers-Briggs accredited, and I do love the Myers-Briggs, and that's a good one, sort of, particularly if you're working within teams, to get a better understanding of people and team dynamics. But what else? I mean, when you're in the corporate world, there's a number of different ones. There's the DISC.
We can put it in the show notes, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a bunch out there, but the VIA character strengths, I think, is the starting point.
And I have one for kids too, I think, from memory for that, like I think if you're like 14 plus sort of thing, they can do it.
Yeah. I kind of really got like obsessed with that stuff as well when I think it was my first HR job. We did a Myers-Briggs and I just thought it was really cool, and it gives, it just helps you to understand people better too, because it's great to have, I think, self-awareness, but then, being able to read other people and have an understanding of, okay, they're not just being disagreeable, they see this in a completely different way to me, or, things like that can be really helpful as you progress through.
Yeah, well, because no matter what, throughout life, you're going to be around people, right? Like it's very, very rare to just be in your own hole or in a room by yourself. So at some point, you need to know what it's like to be on the other side of you. Or as you said, like how to read other people so you can see how they're responding.
I'm really curious about the Nissi dream, because you said you've got the big picture, you can see this business really is still in the infancy of what you want it to be.
Yeah.
I'd love to know where you're headed with it.
I wish I knew too, but
history tours.
See, what do you say?
I think it shifts all the time. Ultimately, I think we'd like to have a space, and we talked about, is it like a little kind of taverna or something? But I've actually always, especially when we veered Nissi more towards like lifestyle and well-being, I'd like to have like a wellness hub where whether it's, a spot that you can come and get like a healthy smoothie, a healthy salad, have a little bit of, retail in there too, but make it like a community space. I think that's kind of ultimately where we're headed. That's the physical, and then maybe run some retreats. And like I said earlier, I used to love running workshops and stuff. So now with all my added skills, it'd be fun I love getting people in a room and getting them to, like we just talked about, get a better understanding of themselves and feed off each other to kind of just explore more about themselves, like all of that. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
And Tash, something that we sometimes ask people is we have a couple of questions we normally do at the end. The one that I'm thinking I'm going to try is, so thinking of the listener, what's something that we haven't asked you about that you think would help them?
So what you're thinking, listener, is maybe someone finishing high school, a parent navigating a young person, or someone who is in that transition of like change or shift. So anyone in those sorts of spaces.
I just think, like when I think about, my kids especially, it's so hard to not want to mold them into what you see that, that you think they should be. For a very long time, my daughter's quite introverted, not kind of, into a lot of the stuff that all the other kids are and that kind of thing. And, it's taken me to this point to take my own advice of play to her strengths. She doesn't have to be, this sort of, so just allowing them to, maybe supporting them to, to really grow their own passions and interests, not forcing them into other stuff because that's just what the norm is or what the other kids are doing, and just letting them find their own path and their own way essentially, and having a bit of trust.
I've heard my very knowledgeable co-host say a bit like, it's not about getting your kids to come to play to you, like you can come and play to your kids.
Yeah.
It's almost that idea of like lean into whatever it is, their spark, their interests, and try and like say, they're not a mini you, right?
Also, life gives you so many second chances. I look at my family and siblings and stuff, and like one of my brothers, he was having a really hard time around, I think it was around his 20th, 21st birthday, and sometimes you just need someone to like give you a little helping hand or a little bit of a prod. So as much as we've said, don't force them, you kind of got to be that, I don't know, just like that safe space for them.
I talk about being like a warm demander. Yeah, so like I dial up the support, but I also know when I can dial up or dial down the challenge.
It sounds like you're offering them a hand based on what will benefit them, not offering them an opportunity that you think they need to have, but one that ultimately is going to be aligned with them, right? I think that's kind of the difference.
But yeah, that the whole second chances thing, like you can completely flunk out and still, wake up one day down the track and get another opportunity for something amazing.
Well, when we asked you about 3 words, and you gave us a few, but the first one I said, in terms of describing education, you said a starting point.
Yeah.
That's a really good reminder that, it's just a moment in the big journey. Hey,
it is. And but it is that sort of, a starting point to that lifelong, I think, journey of self-discovery, exploration, and keeping that curiosity spark alive. Like we're always learning, and it's, the coolest.
What a nerd. Nah, I'm such a massive. No, I love it. But that's the thing, because you're curious, right? So you enjoy, you say learning, it's like you discovering, finding things out. Like that's the best thing. Like that's.
Because you are open about yourself. Like I feel like you meet people exactly where they are, but people feel safe. They're like, oh, this is not a pretend situation. Tash is actually giving me all of herself right now. I can meet her there. Yeah. Yes, but I think there's something very personal.
Very much about. And that was another thing going through corporate world. Like everyone wore this like corporate mask, and no one was their authentic selves. And it was, again, authenticity is such a big buzzword now and whatever. But I just remember struggling with that so hard. Watching people right next to me who I was good friends with, so I knew them on a personal level, what they were really like, but they had these work personas and I just could never do it. And that's probably, another reason why I just struggled in that environment a lot. I mean, now it's sort of asked for, appreciated, authentic leadership and that kind of thing, but I don't know how much of it they really need. So, but yeah.
Well, it certainly sounds like you're in a better environment for you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, this is lovely. I'm glad that, Ryan has brought me to here.
Yes.
I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for being part of it, Tash. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
And if you know someone that has a similar story or a different story, Tash, to Tash, reach out to us at morethanascorepod@gmail.com. You can also find out about the Nissi Collective or about Nissi Wellness via...
Yes, at Nissi, NISSI_collective or at Nissi, NISSI_wellness.
Yes.
Look at you go. You've done this before.
Yes, go follow.
All right, Tash, you ready for a good crisp high five to finish off? All right, you ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we can do better. We can do better. We can do that. Yeah. That's what we want. All right. That is more than a score. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tash.